Fall 1906. Italy steals into Brest. Oh, that rogue. French land defenses are impressive but not impregnable, and the cracks begin to show. The setup here is one in which I calculate Marseille and Munich will inevitably fall. The shame of it is, at least from a neutral standpoint, that with German and English help, the French position would still be salvageable. Without it, France is just forestalling the inevitable. Around this time, I'm not really sure when, France starts messaging Italy trying to convince him that I will stab him and that he must turn on me first. France is correct. But he overplays his hand, trying to lie to Italy that I've offered to work with him in a stab of Italy. This is a problem for Italian suspension of disbelief because I've been explicitly encouraging and to some degree helping plan the rapid destruction of France. Knowing that France is such a strong player, Italy and I come to the consensus that once France is dead, the other powers will agree to our two-power draw, thus preventing us from having to invent a non-existent Austrian-Italian stalemate line. This means French communications are effectively sound and fury signifying nothing, particularly when Italy doesn't believe the actual facts that France is alleging, since France mixed them with some untruths. Just some insights from behind the curtain as to the thought processes that underlie this sort of scenario. Spring 1907. With some effort, and French military resources being thankfully overstretched, I finally take Munich. Italy continues advancing more fleets through the Med, and now he has only one unit behind my lines, located protectively in Constantinople. We've been engaging in coordinated bounces in the region to prevent stabbing, but I have pushed for him to gradually move almost all of his units, besides this one, to the front lines. Fortunately for me, my front line in Germany is close to the Italian and Austrian home centers, while the Italian front line is basically the mid-Atlantic Ocean. Fall 1907. I allow Italy to take Bulgaria, preventing me from enjoying my Munich build, but netting him another fleet. Overall, I think the alliance does well by this decision. While I did intend to stab Italy for almost the entirety of our alliance, it's worth noting I nonetheless made a sincere effort to work together, and I think it worked out well. These kinds of sacrifices on occasion make sense, and I thought they were good for our mutual trust and morale. Spring 1908. I make an advance into St. Petersburg that I shouldn't rightly have been able to make. Germany has failed to enter orders again, and I'm really glad that this isn't how I end up winning the game. France, under attack by England and Italy, is a broken shell of its former self militarily. Tactically, the player remains as sound as ever, but strategically his country is now all but irrelevant. Italy takes Marseille, England has Brest. Fall 1908, Germany fails to enter orders again, but this time I don't really benefit from it, since all of his centers are closer to other people. That's life. I nonetheless take back the center I gave Russia, which is wholly unprotected with France in shambles and me in Munich. I hit 11 centers, and I can tell the critical moment when I will be able to stab Italy is happily drawing near. I would like to have 13 or 14 centers when I do it, so that merely absorbing the Italian centers behind my lines will give me the win. I don't like to leave room for error in this kind of situation because I must admit I'm not that great of a tactician, and while I feel I do endgames reasonably well, I have ruined them before. Spring 1909. I take the last German home center entirely unopposed. Germany, meanwhile, reclaims Norway from England, and I think I may have laughed out loud when I saw that. England and Germany are still fighting. England has also become an arm of Italy because he has no confidence in the ability of the Western powers to stop us, and Italy offered to let him in on some of the centers we were taking from France. This is very short-sighted on England's part, but it helps us, so I don't really care. Also, Italy is in Belgium. My goodness. Never have I seen an Austrian-Italian alliance work so successfully. France is quite justly frustrated by this point. I think, though, he continues to be a good sport, and he plays competitively and intelligently for the remainder of the game, to the extent that that is possible. I quietly move my units into position at this point for a stab of Italy in the fall. A successful alliance. Meaning an alliance that I can end in order to claim the solo. Yay! Fall 1909. Italian-occupied Belgium supports me into Kiel. What a wonderful world. But just like that, things turn upside down for Italy. The best thing about this is that it happens as I move into Italian-controlled Serbia and Venice, and move all the other units I control that weren't necessary to hold Germany into the area around Turkey. Excellent. Everything goes off without a hitch. I took 3 centers that year. And I prevented Italy from getting a build that might have helped him defend against this. This was the perfect moment in which to do this. And, well, Italy perfectly opened himself up for the stab. I calculate I will grab at least 2/3 of the Italian homeland, likely never to be recovered, by the end of this, and I'm happy even if Italy reclaims 1/3 of it, because it will distract him while I take control of Italian-occupied Turkey, a critical foreign policy objective for me at this point. I'm sure France is pleased. He was so convinced that I would stab Italy earlier that he posted a picture in the public press with the caption, "There can be only one." I message France to congratulate him on this foresight. Also, I finally get a second fleet. Italy congratulates me on the stab, but notes that he and his comrades in the West will continue working hard to defeat me. I respond with a mix of joy and apprehension. I was actually worried Italy would take the stab kinda hard, and I'm happy he didn't, but I am a little worried about everyone allying against me. It's hard for me to tell just looking at the map, but I kind of suspect that if everyone worked against me very effectively, together, in unison, as though a single player was controlling all those pieces, they could prevent my solo. Of course, that doesn't happen. Spring 1910. I have great admiration for the team player capacity Italy showed during our alliance, and I respect his intelligence, which he demonstrated on many occasions during our collaboration. But there is no denying a simple truth here. He played this season badly. In a season that saw me deploy my second fleet, take Italy's second home center, and advance more units toward both his homeland and Turkey, the only advance Italy makes against me is supporting France into Holland, which I frankly knew I couldn't hold forever. I needed Italy's support to take it in the first place. Italy managed to somehow alienate all of his apparent allies by also occupying English and French territories, without consent in the case of at least the French turf. These moves to further cement his conquest of that side of the board also prevent him from moving his units toward the front line with me, and I dare say that tactical error alone was enough to cost him the game, by itself. The fact that this also represents a fundamental misreading of the board, his allies, and the diplomatic climate is also worth noting. By making these moves, Italy moved his units further away from me, caused both France and Germany to jump into my lap at my request, and help me cement the solo, and, for perhaps the most astute player on the board, France, the moves caused him not just to give up hope of stopping me, but also of holding on to his dignity as a major power. And that goes about as well for Italy as you'd expect. I don't like to speak of things that people deserve in diplomacy, because that kind of talk sounds like nonsense. But when, as here, an alliance is made out of convenience and the sheer will to survive, a stab like this risks destroying the whole alliance. And as we shall see, the Italian stab doomed that alliance from the start. I was actually very surprised such a smart player made this mistake, hence all the time spent explaining it. Fall 1910. Oh my. Yes. France starts sharing Italy's discussions and proposed battle plans with me. He and I discuss some way that he may get back at Italy militarily, but we don't come up with much. All France has is Holland, after all. I reach out to Germany to see if he'd be interested in helping me out, and amusingly enough, he is also alienated by Italy, and sees the writing on the wall as well. He's ready for the game to be over. Unfortunate interference by England prevents it this season, but Germany and I plan for him to simply let me into Norway. By the end of this year, I control all of Italy's homeland and Ankara, while having units poised to seize Bulgaria next spring and all of Turkey by next fall. Knowing Italy's plans proved instrumental in the Italian peninsula conquest at least. I took a big risk, bouncing a move he made into Venice, using my unit already in Rome. A risk that Italy could not have known I would take, because the only reason I took it was because someone shared his plans with me. This enables me to free up Trieste for another fleet build, rather than using the army there to bounce with Italy's possible move, or to self-bounce. If I hadn't obtained all of the Italian home centers here, he'd have a build, which would have caused me no end of trouble. As it stands, he doesn't even have a destroy, because despite losing his homeland and failing to acquire any centers from me, he has absorbed multiple centers from his allies. As a strategic situation, this is a bad one to be in, though in the short term I imagine it feels better than the alternative of moving all of his units toward me to hopefully lock me in a stalemate. Spring 1911. Germany lets me into Norway. No one expected that but me and him, but now everyone can hear the fat lady beginning to sing. I begin the final absorption of Turkey, which I will finish in the fall. Italy reveals to me that he hasn't been able to spend as much time as he'd like on the game this past week, but he congratulates me rather warmly on the victory, and we part amicably. France has rather bitter feelings about what happened, but, well, that's bound to happen in diplomacy. Fall 1911. Victory. I should note, looking at the map, something I'm particularly proud of is that this is one of the few games in which, even assuming that I had to conquer the entire map to win, I'm fairly certain I would have ultimately done it. There is a possible stalemate line that involves the mid-Atlantic that could have been used to stop me, but my comrades, Germany and France, would have fundamentally broken down the ability of the enemy alliance to cooperate against me, and I don't think there's much chance they would have unified to stop total European domination. The takeaway here, while I am no great tactician, it's interesting to note that breaking your opponent's teamwork removes the necessity of using tactics on any deep level. This is obvious, but very difficult to do in practice. And trust is a very valuable thing, one that shouldn't be lightly tossed away. That's really the big lesson here. Because my enemies' distrust for each other was really what put the final nail in the coffin, whereas the trust of my one ally for most of the game toward me was what made us such a strong alliance. I hope you liked this diplomacy commentary, and if so, I hope you will like and subscribe and check out future videos. Till next time, have a good one.